Here we are for another round of the 70s versus the 90s, and it's a double-O showdown with Guy Hamilton's Live and Let Die versus Martin Campbell's GoldenEye. And this right here, I mean, we'll just get down to it, because, you know, it's Bond versus Bond. So at the end of the day, nobody really gives a fuck about the plots. You know, they're all pretty basic, you know, but what you're really looking at is like the Bonds. You know, Live and Let Die, we've got Roger Moore. This is the first outing for Roger Moore as James Bond, coming off of Sean Connery's last one, Diamonds Are Forever. The director of Live and Let Die, Guy Hamilton, is the same guy that basically set the gold standard for Bond, with no pun intended, with Goldfinger. And here he is with Live and Let Die, trying to set the tone for what, you know, Roger Moore's Bond is going to look like. You know, honestly, it's kind of a, you know, fun, tongue-in-cheek. In a lot of ways, Live and Let Die is kind of like a blaxploitation film done Bond style and shit. You know, the big bad is played by Yaphet Kotto, who's like the prime minister of some like Jamaican island called San Monique. It's probably a fictional name or whatever the fuck. There's a lot of voodoo shit involved. You know, you got James Bond in Harlem and New Orleans, so it's like a lot of flavor. There's a lot of the Black Stuntman organization was used a lot in there, especially for like one of the greatest, probably the greatest set piece in the movie, which is that amazing boat chase that they have in fucking the bayous of New Orleans and shit. And that right there, like, kind of overshadows the whole movie, because it's got a pretty like hot Bond girl, Jane Seymour. You know, the plot is basic as fuck. You know, it's like, you know, this guy's like gonna give all this heroin away and get motherfuckers hooked on it. So then, like, he driving up the price and fuck all the mob shit up. So, I mean, you know, like I said, pretty basic, but at the end of the day, it's your basic, like, Bond fucking shit, you know. Roger Moore, he was a fun, tongue-in-cheek Bond, you know. But, like, where Connery was more, like, the hard-ass, you know, he was more the fucking, like, silly lover type guy, you know. He's still gonna get all the ass, he's gonna get the bad guys, but, you know, he's not as, like, ruthless. Then we jump ahead with GoldenEye. The director of that one, Martin Campbell, would all, you know, this is also the first outing for Pierce Brosnan as Bond, you know, and then they hadn't made a Bond film since like Timothy Dalton's License to Kill in 1989, so there was kind of a almost a clean slate for Bond, so to speak. And you know, Martin Campbell would almost actually 10 years later, after GoldenEye, would kickstart another new Bond with Casino Royale, Daniel Craig's first outing. But with GoldenEye, this movie is just a balls-to-the-wall fucking action film. Like, Pierce Brosnan may be the best Bond, because where Brosnan gets it right is he finds that middle ground that Connery and Moore couldn't, you know, because he's ruthless like Connery, but he's also like, you know, chill and quippy like Roger Moore was. But, you know, the dude don't take no fucking shit, you know. And the movie just opens with a bullet, you know, fantastic stunt. They jumping off that dam in the beginning, and then the plane going over the fucking cliff. You know, he jumps the cliff with the fucking motorcycle and jumps into the fucking plane. You know, it's pretty fucking nuts. And then, you know, on top of that, you know, after the fucking opening credits, then he has that fucking chase sequence with fucking Famke Jensen. He's in an Aston Martin, a clear throwback to the OG fucking car that Bond's known for, which, you know, first started in like Goldfinger. And, you know, it's just like nonstop fucking action, you know, and then they're fucking slaughter. You know, the thing about like Live and Let Die, it's very cartoonish, you know. That's what more like Roger Moore was. He was the fucking like comic book Bond guy, whereas like with GoldenEye, like Pierce Brosnan was more retrofitted for the 90s kind of Bond, you know, because is in a weird way, like with Dr. No in the 60s, they like James Bond set the tone for like what action adventure movies should be. But in a weird way, like with the example of like Live and Let Die and GoldenEye, they pretty much go along with whatever like action type shit was popular of the time, and ended up setting the tone even further. But like, now if we're going off of like who has the better song, Live and Let Die, hands fucking down. Because at the end of the day, it's Bond versus Bond, so we're just nitpicking. Because everybody knows the fucking, like, all the tropes of Bond, you know, but it all comes down to, like, who does Bond better, you know? Because even the plot of GoldenEye is a little bit better than the plot of Live and Let Die. Because here you got Russians after the Cold War is done and shit, the Berlin Walls fell and all this shit, and so that's a whole new Russia and stuff, and they've got this satellite, they're going to take out the fucking, England because, one dude's got a grudge. There's that whole plot with Sean Bean is the fucking like former spy. They were like best friends, brothers basically, and all this shit. So, a trope that's been done before a million fucking times, but it's done so in a fashion where you can almost excuse it because the fucking movie is just nonstop fucking action. Because even dude fucking is driving a tank through fucking Moscow. That shit's fucking nuts, man. So I mean, there's a lot of shit that you can argue, like we're going classical, whatever the fuck. But at the end of the day, too, what makes the better movie? And I gotta say, GoldenEye. So this round clearly has to go to GoldenEye. So that's the 90s win this round. But the thing about it is like, Roger Moore is kind of the fun guy, but you get a lot more with Brosnan. There's layers, there's intensity, and also, there's no Q in Live and Let Die. GoldenEye has a great fucking Q scene. And not saying that Q makes or breaks a Bond movie, but fuck, it don't hurt to have Desmond Llewellyn in there fucking being funny and shit and giving Bond shit, And plus, the Bond women were fucking hot as shit. Famke Jensen and the Russian chick, I forget her name, she's fucking amazing. She kind of looks like Ingrid Bergman and just fucking, I think she's actually a Polish actress, but, accents are great. Because honestly, for a movie about your Russian villains, there's very few Russians in the fucking movie. You've got Robbie Coltrane is a fucking Russian gangster. This is fucking British as shit. Fucking Hagrid, And then you got Minnie Driver playing a Russian singer, can't sing for shit, I don't know. Hopefully Minnie Driver has a better singing voice. Let's hope that was a joke. But all in all, because Live and Let Die is kind of slow. Like, the opening is your basic fucking spy, set shit up, all these motherfuckers die. Now James Bond has to come in, and it's just, it moves. It's very, go through the motions type Bond movie. But you look at the writing of GoldenEye too, is just so perfect. And, it's just like the perfect movie to put on a Saturday night and just enjoy mindless entertainment. You see Bond fuck shit up and pound pussy. That's all we really want to see. And he does it in Live and Let Die as well. But if we were going off theme songs, Live and Let Die would get it. But as the whole motherfucking package, like, the song is the worst part of GoldenEye. And honestly, it kind of makes for a more thrilling fucking, score going through the film. And, of course, they got that lame-ass shit, fucking faux Eric Clapton sounding, or Sting bullshit at the end. The music is what would kill it on this one. But the movie's so badass, nobody gives a fuck about the music. So it goes to GoldenEye on this round. That, if anybody's keeping score, it's 9-8. 70s. So like the 70s are only up by one, the 90s seem to be catching up, so they could very well tie it up next week, because it's a very wild card round. We have Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs versus Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear. So that should be a raucous one, so it's a Bond showdown. Like I said, Pierce Brosnan, probably the greatest Bond. Fight me on that. Debate me. I don't give a fuck. Like I said, I have no life. I do this shit every fucking Saturday. And at the end of the day, this is all for me. I'm basically working on a rough draft of my doctoral thesis to see which decade is better, in fact. And, it's looking like it might be the fucking 70s, because even though the 90s be coming back, we'll see. If they tie it up next week, then we'll know that it's really getting close. But it's very cat and mouse right now. Kind of like a James Bond movie and shit. So, and we'll have further James Bond matchups. There were a few that they came out in the 70s and the 90s, because that right there is something that's important. Who is the best Bond? And so we'll throw Roger Moore against fucking Pierce Brosnan to see what happens on that front. But all in all, GoldenEye wins it. 9-8, 70s. Who knows? Viscerate me in the comments next week. Straw Dogs versus Cape Fear. So it's going to be a wild one.